Kareem from 19. Yes! Bibby, big three-pointer for the rookie from Arizona.
Big Country Reeves needs to rebound from what was a terrible season.
Does everyone like basketball?
With the second pick in the 1999 NBA draft, the Vancouver Grizzlies select Steve Francis from the University of Maryland.
This is, with the second pick, Steve Francis, the uncompromisingly niche Vancouver Grizzlies basketball podcast. I'm Jeremy Allingham. This is game one of the Grizzlies' third season. It's the with the second pick debut of Antonio Daniels, Otis Thorpe, Brian Hill, not to mention Ivan O'Newbill. I'm here with my co-host, the Ed Wernick of Vancouver Rec League Curling, Justin Hurry Hard McElroy. How you doing, Justin?
You know, that gives too much credit to me. He won a couple of championships. I'm doing good, Jeremy. I think we deserve a round of applause for getting through 2 seasons of Vancouver Grizzlies basketball.
Yes.
Seasons. 10 games so far. We have 5 more to go in this third season.
It's our first game, man.
If there's
5 more to go.
They've won 15 games in their first season, of course. Bad for an expansion team. Somehow they were even worse in their second season. Only 14 wins. They can't be worse this season, right? We have to be turning the corner. There's some sort of redemption. We all know that it's going to be bad. But it's going to be bad in new and interesting ways. Like you said, we've got Thorpe. We've got Antonio Daniels. We've got a new coach. We've got new optimism. And we're going to find new ways over the course of this season to break down why exactly this team failed to develop into anything at all over their 6 seasons of infamous history.
Thank you for pulling me out of my my depression, and not only my, I was definitely procrastinating watching this game, but with that newfound energy that you've just given me, let's go. We're taking you back to November 4th, 1997, to the Reunion Arena in Dallas, Texas. It's the Grizzlies taking on the Mavericks in a tilt between 2 Western Conference superpowers. Well, not so much. The Vancouver Grizzlies are off to kind of hot by their measure, 1-1 start. It's only the 3rd game of the year, having already lost to the Mavericks and beaten the Sacramento Kings. The Mavericks are 2-0, having beaten the Sonics in addition to the Grizzlies. And before we get to the action, there's a lot of kind of ruckus going on. It's a bit of a raucous pregame show here at the Reunion Arena in Dallas.
This is the home opener for the Dallas Mavericks, and this is no longer the Jim Jackson, Jamel Mashburn, Jason Kidd, 3J era of the Mavs. No, they've moved on. This is now the Michael Finley, Sean Bradley, and a bunch of guys. We'll get to that later, but there's a new optimism with this team. Like the Grizzlies, this was a team that struggled a lot in the mid-90s. I always had it circled on my calendar as this is a gettable game for Vancouver. But like you said, home opener for the Mavs. They are amped. They got a bunch of weird things going on. They got the requisite mascot jumping through the fire to do a slam dunk. They've also got a strange arrangement of the national anthem.
Yeah, well, let me talk about the mascot that you said first. This is a mascot named Mavs Man. A marketing team of 25 geniuses sat around for weeks coming up with that one. This is truly one of the worst all-time mascots I've ever seen. This is born from like the nightmares of children. This man has basketball skin, if you know what I mean, like the leather of a basketball with the seams. That's his skin. He has a kind of a basketball face and head. He's wearing a cowboy belt, of course, because it's Dallas, and has a hauntingly insane smile. And as you said, dunks through a ring of fire. This being the home opener, there sure are a lot of empty seats there in Dallas. They're about 4,000 short of a sellout. And there's kind of this vibe of forcing that Dallas may be good. We've got the announcers saying, they've won the first 2 games. The announcers, Jim Durham and Bob Ortegal. They've won their first 2 games. This is a good team. We'll see what they're like this season. I mean, Vancouver Grizzlies fans know all about 2-0 starts. And after that bizarre rendition of the national anthem, they bring out a hype man to trash talk the Grizzlies.
Do you know who it is that's on this bench? The USA Today NBA Basketball Team of the Week, on pace to win 97 games, 97-0, division leading, #1 team in the nation. Now, on this side, we've got a team that came in here for 1 victory. Now, they've already tasted defeat at the hands of these men over here. And I want you to know, Vancouver, that unfortunately you're going home a loser again tonight.
And he mentions that the Mavericks are on their way to a 97-0 season. And he's like the 5th person to mention that the Mavericks are USA Today's Team of the Week, which I was like, holy shit, you guys are grasping me at straws.
We got to talk about the Grizzlies lineup, though, because this starting lineup is what Stu Jackson, I believe, thought would be a good, dependable unit for the entire season with solid players in all 5 slots.
That's true. And I mean, the Antonio Daniels thing, as much as you might argue that he shouldn't start, I mean, when Lee Mayberry's the other idea there, I mean, you can see why they want to throw the rookie into the fire, though he doesn't fare too well, as we will discuss later. On to the first quarter action.
Yeah, and it is actually a very good start for the Grizzlies. We get Antonio Daniels making a nice jumper. We get Anthony Peeler with a layup. We get a great reef and one.
They want to get Sacramento. There's a foul on Bradley. The basket is good. Sharif Abdur-Rahim. Well, with his back to the basket, he has a variety of moves inside, and he likes to go all the way to the iron. He likes to get in tight. He's a very good finisher when he does make the move. Some guys don't like to.
It is 7-2 early for the Grizz. Like you said, Sean Bradley shows some agility early on, blocks 2 shots, then he scores himself. But then we get another AP 3-pointer. There's another reef dunk, and the Grizz are up 12-4 early. The crowd, empty to begin with, is out of it. And we're seeing the Grizz have some motion on offense that is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, so this is the thing, is I always, when they start posting up so much, because it's such a contradictory thing to see as opposed to my modern basketball watching, I always start a little tally of how many post-ups, how many post-entry passes there are. And just like the Brian Winters era, there are a lot. There's 8 Sharif Abdur-Rahim post-entry passes in the first quarter. However, something is very, very different about this offense under Brian Hill, and that is the pace. The pace is cooking. They're moving the ball. If they can't enter it, they swing it. They swing it back. They put it into the post. They kick it out of the post. Fights for better position in the post. They re-enter it. He makes a move. He scores. Sharif looks unbelievable in this quarter, to the point where I'm going like, well, I mean, first of all, the announcer says that he's one of the best players in the NBA, and I go, hell yeah, he looks like it. He's got springs in his legs. He's attacking the bucket. He is the absolute cream of the crop in this game. In the first quarter, it's not even close. He's head and shoulders above everyone else. And I'm going like, this guy looks unbelievable. He finishes the first quarter with 15 points on 6 of 10 shooting. Country's got some spark. They look really good out there. They end up on a 26-12 run to start this quarter.
I do want to do a little bit of fact check on the offense now is high pace the entire time. They start that way. Things take a turn, shall we say, without spoiling the entire game. But yeah, it's looking good for them. Even their backups are looking not bad. We get the standard Lee Mayberry endlessly dribbling to nowhere game, but he gets it to Reef, who scores. We get Pete Chilcutt in the game. He's spry in there, gets an offensive rebound and putback, really energetic there. And then we finish with a big country dunk with 2 seconds left in the quarter. The Grizz ended up 30-18, 12 points up. This is the wave of the future. Season 3, baby. Let's go. Nothing can go wrong.
Absolutely pumping them. Woo! It was unbelievable, man. They just absolutely took it to them. And a Vancouver Grizzlies 30-point quarter. I mean, how often have we seen that before? That's high-paced offensive action at its finest.
Time for the second quarter to begin. And at the beginning of it, it's still going pretty good for the Grizz. And a lot of it is the one and only Pete Chilcutt.
Woo! Pete Chilcutt checks into the game, and he's just an energy guy out there. He's ripping around. He rips a couple boards, a couple nice assists, even makes a bucket. I was really impressed with him out there. And, as always, I'm wishing he'd take a few more threes with my anachronistic view of modern basketball, trying to force it into the square peg into the circle hole of 1990s basketball. But I really enjoyed the Pete Chilcutt experience for this game.
We also have developing a nice little two-man game between one Otis Thorpe and one Brian Reeves down low, both of them using their bodies. Thorpe having some really nice depth passes low to get a couple of easy putbacks. Thorpe also in transition, looking good. He was 34 years old at the time. He's looking pretty spry out there for the Grizz as they keep up this big lead early in the second.
We'll talk about him, in our halftime segment here, but I loved Otis Thorpe. It was like that first game when we watched Kenny Gaddison, just with that massive body, just like the body that kind of like hulks over everyone else. Tall, muscular. He's in control. He's a bit slow moving, but in the good way of like, I'm controlling this game. This is the pace I want to play at. And he's got that high, like you said, that high-low going with Big Country. And at one point, the big boy feeds him, and he's like under the hoop and catches it. And you're like, oh, he's going to be stuck under there.
Reeves underneath the Thorpe for the reverse dunk. Notice the quickness off the floor. He is so quick off the floor, Otis Thorpe, and so strong.
Nope, no problem.
Yep. Just
goes up, reverse dunks it, and you're like, man, I'm starting to love Otis Thorpe here. I know that this love affair can't last forever, but that was fun to watch out there.
The 6 for 10 from the field, 16 points, 14 rebounds. That's more than tidy. That's pretty darn fine. But then the Mavs start pushing into that 14-point lead a little bit. And it comes from a player that new coach Brian Hill actually had a fair bit of experience with.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting here because my second line on my notes from the second quarter is Dennis Scott lethargic. It's funny because Dennis Scott always looked a little bit out of shape. He's always a little soft. Not soft as far as like grit or whatever that.
Just a guy who plays in your gym whose best years were maybe a decade ago.
But he looked like that even like early in his career, right? So, Dennis Scott lethargic quickly turns into Dennis Scott is absolutely scorchingly hot, fire coming out of his head.
Scott over Abdur Rahim. Dennis Scott is stroking it.
Hitting everything. He's 7 for 12 for 14 points in the second quarter. He doesn't even hit a three. At that era, he's one of the 3-point marksmen of the time. And he's 7 for 12 from the field, all 2-point field goals, and absolutely lighting the Grizzlies up. And it's really done he's making all the shots, so you're impressed, but it's just this unassuming, mid-range, not explosive. We know it's like anti-explosion. No. It's just like almost magnet to the ground, but just that sweet stroke and just hitting everything. And man, he really got the Mavericks back in this ball game.
Scott is feeling it. Michael Finley is feeling it. The Grizz aren't exactly collapsing, but they're not keeping pace quite as much. Halftime comes after a 17-7 run for the Mavericks to end the quarter. The Grizzlies see their 14-point lead down to just 4. It's 54-50. The third quarter starts, and we get a nice little back and forth happening between the two stars of the two teams. Both young guys, both will take very different paths for the rest of their NBA career to fame and greatness. Reef and Michael Finley. Reef gets in with a great move where he's sort of stuck, can't really go anywhere, and somehow weasels out and gets a layup.
Abdur Rahim doubled up in the post this time. Now he makes the up and under move. 22 points for him and a 6-point lead for Vancouver.
He kept the pivot foot planted, and he was patient, finally found an opening.
Finley gets a couple nice fast break points to get it close. We're really seeing who are the stars, who have the energy early on in this third quarter for both these teams.
And, I think we'd be remiss not to mention the big boy, Big Country, in this game. I just really liked him as a third option. Like, it was Reef, it was Thorpe, And then it was Big Country. And, he played 41 minutes. He was the minute leader for the Vancouver Grizzlies. But he has a really nice post up early in the third quarter.
Bryant Reeves against Bradley. Slips inside. Come on! Reeves has 8 points tonight.
I just thought that, at 14 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 blocks on 7 of 16 shooting. I don't know. This is kind of like the role that Big Country Bryant Reeves should have been in. Maybe obviously not from the start, but that's kind of where he should have ended up all along,
Yeah, when you're a third or fourth option. It was a quieter game, but an efficient game. But Finley is still pouring it on for the Mavs in this third quarter. He gets a 3. He then has a highlight reel dunk.
Ball, Finley has it. Ollie going inside. Back to Finley for the dunk.
This crowd's going crazy.
The Mavs take the lead, and we're starting to see a couple things happen for the Grizzlies here on offense. Number one, they're not putting the ball into Reef nearly as much for an extended period here in this third, to the point where even the announcer calls the Grizzlies out for it.
Either shoulder. That's good defensively. Good help from Thomas. Best job they've done against Raheem is right there.
And they strip the ball from him. It's out of bounds to the Grizzlies with 10 to shoot.
See, they're giving that young guy something to think about now. Thomas is running at him. Bradley's running at him. When you do that to a youngster, maybe you can cause him to be hesitant. I said maybe because he's an awfully good player.
And number two, that movement that you were talking about with Brian Hill early in the game, it's just not happening at this point. It's a lot of just 2 sets into the post, trying to force things, and we go back to the Achilles heel for this team that we saw a lot in the second season when Greg Anthony was out especially. The guards aren't doing anything. Anthony Peeler is sort of silent. Lee Mayberry is Lee Mayberry. And Antonio Daniels, it's not that he's playing terribly in this game, but he's not penetrating or creating any offense of his own.
No, I mean, the guards combined for 6 points in the second half. The pace slows, and their transition defense is terrible as well.
Reef is quick out of a double and gets a nice little layup. The Grizz retake the lead, but the Mavs come back with another bucket as well, tying the game at 74. That crowd might be, 25% empty, but they are loud at this point. They have made it all the way back from 14 points down, but it's still only one ball game tied going into the fourth. Fourth quarter underway. Can the Grizzlies go above 500 or not? Early on, it seems like they're going to be spry in this fourth quarter. Buck the famous fourth quarter trend that we know with this team. We get a Lynch jumper that gives them the lead. Another George Lynch jumper as well. He's feeling it, but Dennis Scott is feeling it too.
Sets it up for Dennis Scott, who knocks out his third triple.
He made sure he was behind the three-point line. Khalid Reeves, penetration, draw the defense, dish the ball.
He gets 1 3-pointer to tie it. Then a minute later, he gets another one. Dennis Scott feeling like the fourth man on the Orlando Magic again, feeling it this game, now beyond the arc.
Yeah, Dennis Scott is super swaggy out there. Like I said earlier, he's having fun. He's playing with the crowd. He's having a good time. Mike Finley is just boundless energy out there. At certain points, it seems like he's running circles around the Grizzlies, and just like the Grizzlies are dead out there, man. And like, to bear out my hypothesis, Dallas plays AC Green, Sean Bradley, and Dennis Scott all 12 minutes of the fourth quarter. Mike Finley plays 10 minutes. Conversely, Otis Thorpe and Sharif play only 6.5 minutes each. Somehow Country plays the whole 12 because apparently we're in Bizarro World. And Blue Edwards, out of nowhere, plays 7.5 minutes of the fourth quarter, and he's awful out there. He's slow. He looks very stiff. He's clanking shots. He's really contributing nothing. And if you want the linchpin or the proof of how bad the Grizz looked out there, at a certain point, the announcer says, "I'm surprised that Sam Mack is not in the game." This is where the Grizzlies had reached. A guy who hadn't even been on the floor once that game. The announcers wishing they could see him. So I really just think they were running on fumes here.
I just wanted, you bring up Blue Edwards. I want to take a moment in the middle of the quarter when the Mavs are starting to assert their will on this, turn it from a back and forth, anyone can lead, to, oh, they're the ones in charge. We get a Brad lead and one where Big Country is slow to react. And then Grizz go to Blue Edwards in the post. For whatever reason, it goes badly. The Mavs score, timeout. They're down by 3. Anthony Daniels then misses a 3. Reef gets an air ball. Finley gets a long 2. And the Mavs get up by 7 points. The fans are going crazy. And it was just an inexplicable number of possessions in a row where there was no real form on offense. And on defense, just no transition play whatsoever.
Vancouver scores 13 points in the fourth quarter. They scored 30 in the first and 13 in the fourth. But they still had a chance. With 2:10 left, Anthony Peeler hits a shot to bring them within 4 to 91-87. And I guess Brian Hill looks at Thorpe, gassed. Looks at Sharif, gassed. Country, gassed. And he decides it's time to drop 3 straight pin-down jumper plays for Anthony Peeler. Like, it's just like, all right, basically, if Peeler hits these, we win. If he misses them, we lose. Brick. Yeah.
And then brick. 3 in a row, and that is pretty much the game. There is one point, and again, this team with clock management in the final 2 minutes of the game, they have a chance there's 30 seconds left in the game. They're down at this point by 4. So they got a chance for a quick, the whole, you score quickly, 4 seconds. That way you don't have to foul. And instead, they just have no urgency for a quick bucket. And then it's Peeler shooting that long 3 with like 16 seconds left in the game. And it's just a series of decisions that show that this team, at least in game 3, is not ready for prime time.
And that's the thing is, and I definitely, as a viewer, was going, but wait, things started so amazingly well that we started with such energy. We started with such panache. Sharif, 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0. You see where I'm going here? 0 steals, 0. Literally, he didn't have a stat in any column aside from 0 for 2 from the field in 6.5 minutes in the fourth quarter. And then my neurons in a certain buried part of my brain started going, oh yeah, Sharif in the fourth quarter. And I'm not sure if this is the beginning of something or what here, but an absolute ghost show. Let's do 3 stars, Justin, before we go.
3rd star, even though we just, dumped on him a fair bit there. Reef dominated in the first quarter, held his own in the second and third quarter. 28 points for the Grizzlies. You got to give him the 3rd. The 2nd star goes to Michael Finley. 12 of 18 shooting. That is very tidy, and it was really his energy in the second and third quarter, that athleticism that gave the Mavs the boost, really showed that Finley was going to be a key part of teams for a long time. And first, I got to give it to Dennis Scott and his swag and his arrogance and his shooting. His 3-pointers really turned the game for the Mavericks in the fourth quarter. And in the second quarter, if he doesn't get on fire there when the Grizz are sort of dominating it up by 14, who knows whether they get back into the game or not.
Okay, so for my 3rd star, I just can't bear to give it to Sharif after what I saw in that fourth quarter. That was a disappearing act, the likes of which I've never seen. So I've got to go Otis Thorpe there because I get a feeling I probably won't get a chance to do that ever again. I really loved him out there. I loved his pace. I loved his presence. My 2nd star was Dennis Scott, where you had him first. And my number 1 star was Michael Finley. Offensive rating of 125, defensive of 94. He's locking dudes down out there. So those are my 3 stars.
And the Mavericks now are 3-0. Their fans are going insane. They think they have actually turned a corner, but not all happy stories take one season to develop. The Mavericks then lose 12 of their next 13 games. They fire coach Jim Clemens. They put in Don Nelson. He's 16-50 for the rest of the season. Not great either. But during the next draft, they pick a certain D. Nowitzki, and things start to turn around in Dallas. In Vancouver, well, that's a story for another time.
And with that, this has been with the 2nd pick, Steve Francis. For Justin McElroy, I'm Jeremy Allingham. We'll be back with who we got next, buddy.
We've got Otis Thorpe versus his old team, the Detroit Pistons. We'll see if he gets his revenge.
High drama. Join us for our next episode. Talk to you soon.